This week we are talking about perspective. Left my Bible somewhere that I don't know.
Yes, I'll come back to you.
Hi, welcome back to Doxa Downloads. I am really glad to be here. Thank you for joining me in our online sermon series. I'm super excited. We have our next event coming up, Doxa Live events. This one is going to be October 30th, and it's our Nerf gun shootout. So I'm really excited about that. Oh, there was a bullet in there. It's going to be really fun. Can't wait for all of us to get together and have a great time shooting each other. Well, not each other, shooting at targets. And it's going to be a lot of fun. If you're coming, let me know. But we're going to have pizza. We're going to have our Nerf gun shootout. And we're also going to have a time of sermon that we'll be together. So I'm super stoked. It's going to be a lot of fun. Can't wait to see you there. I do have a question for you. We are in the fall time of year. So I'm wondering, what is something that you really enjoy doing during the fall? Is it like campfires? Is it dressing up as your favorite, character from Marvel? Is it, or from whatever else you like? Or what else? Is it that you like carving pumpkins? What is it that you like doing during this time of year? Have your parents, or you can message me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or you can just text me or email me or even call me. Any one of those ways. So come on and give me your answers. I can't wait to see them. This week we're talking about perspective, and Paul has talked to us through the book of Philippians on how we can change our perspective a lot. He's talked about our past, our future, our present, and all those things are supposed to help us guard our minds, the way we see and view our world. And Paul is going to get real specific in this passage. It's Philippians chapter 2, verses 1 through 4. And it's really the beginning of what most commentators and theologians believe is a song that Paul, or a hymn that Paul is giving to us. And it's describing the beauty of the humility of Jesus and our part in that humility, how we play that out. And he begins that by talking about us remembering all the wonderful, good work of God. And so sometimes it's hard for us to remember that because we have so many problems, so many anxieties and fears that surround us, kind of crush us. They're right in our face. And so it's hard for us to step back, even way back, and see the big picture of what God has done and is doing and what his big plan is. And I think when I think about seeing the big picture, I think about drones. I think about being able to see something from a really high spot. And I actually have a friend who has a drone. And I would love for you guys to see our church from that perspective. So let's go take a look at that with Chris. Our problems are all right in our face, literally. We are wearing masks directly on our face right now because of a pandemic. But our problems are always in our face, right? Especially our mistakes, because they live in our heads and are replayed in our brains at the worst times. When you are able to step back from your problems, you can see a bigger picture. That bigger picture allows you to recognize your faults in a quiet place where you can see your situation better. You will see not just your faults, but also the work of God in your life, and you'll see that you are in his hands. You can reorient yourself to what is real and put yourself in the best place because you are in God's hands. Having a new perspective will change you. You see how unhelpful it is to obsess about your problems? Armed with perspective, you will be able to approach your problems in a new way, a humble way, because your problems and your mistakes are all in God's hands. How do we change our perspective? Let's look at Philippians chapter 2, verses 1 through 4. So, if there is any encouragement in Christ, any comfort from love, any participation in the Spirit, any affection and sympathy, complete my joy by being of the same mind, having the same love, and being in full accord and of one mind. Do nothing from selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility count others more significant than yourselves. Let each of you look not only to his own interests, but also to the interests of others. So if we're changing our perspective as believers, really what that means is that we're zooming out to see the work of God in our lives, to see what God is doing. And Paul is really specific. He says that what we're seeing is the encouragement of Christ, that Christ came and lived and died for us so that we could have a relationship with God. That's encouraging that Christ has chosen to live the life he lived and died for us so that we could have a relationship with God. That's the encouragement we have in Christ, and more encouragement because we have all the things that Christ said and did to encourage us as believers. And the comfort from God's love, that is God's love that sent Jesus Christ on for us. And so we have this love that comforts us, that God actually does love and care for us. So when we're looking at our mistakes, we're looking at our problems, looking at the issues I have with other people, I can say I'm encouraged that Christ came to reconcile me to God. I'm comforted that even though I've made mistakes, God still loves me and cares about me, and he's not just going to give up on me or is done with me. So it pulls us away from our problems. And then lastly, there's an idea in which we're being unified by the work of the Spirit in that first verse. And so God's Spirit is working in us as well. And if we can step back and see all the work of God in our lives, how he's encouraging us, comforting us, unifying us, then that's going to change us. We're rethinking what God's doing, and so that's going to reorient us with one another. We're going to see that what God has done for me, how he's encouraging me and loving me, he's done for you and for my neighbor, and he wants to do for people who don't know him. And so we can reorient ourselves around people that are believers and aren't believers in a way that we want to see God's work done in their lives just as much as in our own. And if we reorient ourselves with one another and with people who don't believe in Christ, it will help us reimagine what it means to be humble. Because if I'm thinking I want to see the work of God happen in this person's life, someone who's a believer or someone who's not a believer, if I want to see the work of God, then I'm not thinking about myself. It's not selfish ambition like it says in verses 3 and 4. But I'm humbly engaging another person because I want to see God do work in that person's life. And there's no idea of glory. God gets all the glory because God's the one who's going to do all the work in that person's life like he's done all the work in your own. And so us getting a different perspective means that we're going to see the work of God in our lives and in the lives of other people. And that's going to reorient ourselves. So you know what? I have to change the way I'm talking to this person. I need to change the way I think about this other person. I'm reorienting myself because I've realized God is doing work in my life and in their life. And then finally, it helps us rethink that humility. I need to do everything I can humbly to serve this other person. So let's do that as we go out this week. Oh, Jameson. Is this about the money? I'll pay it back, I swear.
Dang it.
Ready? It's too close. You ready? Hey, it didn't go off.